Alright, what up, world? Hemingway checking in. I woke up this morning blessed, so I'm still at it. You feel me? And it's a different view. Obviously, I usually try to keep the camera set up with clean visual and whatnot, but we coming off the phone today, so I haven't really made an update on my YouTube in a while. Probably about 3 or 4 months. I don't think I reached the 6 month mark yet, but um, this is a pretty serious life update, so I figured why not go ahead and tap into the YouTube page. And on top of that, it's a pivot from what I'm usually doing in relation to my music. So I'm gonna title this something along the lines of, rapper to recruit, or songwriter to soldier, whatever. But the reasons why I decided to join the army, specifically at the age of 33. So um, for those of y'all that subscribe to the page, that's been following me, I've been making music since I was 18 years old. 33 years old now. Music is not over. It's not something I'm tapping out on. It's not something I'm giving up on. But everybody and their mama has been asking me, why I'm joining and what about music for the most part. So this is just kind of my, my mindset and where I'm at with everything going on. So I'm gonna try to condense this story as much as possible, but I've been making music since 18. My first love was football. Played football in high school. When I graduated high school, I attempted to, you know, I had one small opportunity to go to a JUCO for football, but it was like a partial scholarship, and I had to come up with the housing fees for the rest of it. Didn't really have it at the time, and I didn't really want to burden my parents with it, so I decided to opt out of that. I tried to figure out how to finesse some type of walk-on situation. This is 2009, back when semi-pro was really just becoming a thing, so it was some of those things going around I was trying to look into. But all in all, football, shortly after high school, I was like, it is what it is. I let it go. The love for it was fading anyway, and I wasn't trying to be one of those guys who wanted to like be chasing that dream just to like make a practice squad, and or just to barely walk on a college team and never really go nowhere and waste time. So one thing I always wanted to do though, outside of that, I've always been in music, always been interested in the music, whether it be producing or songwriting or playing an instrument, something like that. I just never really got into it seriously. So around August of the following school year of me graduating high school, that's when I started making music for real. And from which I was still 18, so from 18 to now and going forward, I still have been. I started making music. I still have been making music, and I'm going to continue to make music. But that time frame from 18 to now, when I started, of course, once I got 6 months to a year in, I realized I was actually pretty good, and my whole mindset was like, all right, bet I'm trying to be the biggest, best, baddest, rapper out there, whatever. And I think most people who start with anything, they have that mindset. But definitely with music, it's very easy with music to get blinded by the whole I'm gonna be a millionaire off of making music. And that, on top of the way the actual music industry changes every 3 to 4 years, it's easy to think that it's a quick come up, and that's not the case. First thing I learned while making music is that you have to actually have money to make the music. Like, before you start to endure or go down a path of chasing a music career, you honestly need to have money coming in, and not just like regular 9 to 5 money. You honestly need deep pockets to get into the music industry if you're really trying to break as an artist. So that's something I learned within the first year to 3 years, and have been trying to figure out ever since, right? But to kind of speed this up, I've always had a job. Even in high school, had a job. Throughout working, from 18 to now, I've always had some sort of job. I had a few years here and there where I attempted to go full time with music and engineering and stuff like that. And my bad, phone sliding. And also trying to do like gig work and stuff like that at the same time. But I've always had a job and always had some type of income. But what I've been trying to do by the time I hit around 21, 22, what I've been trying to do was figure out exactly, how can I say this? Try to find the career path that I would be interested in outside of music, just in case it wasn't something that worked out for me overall. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, by the time specifically I was 23, I remember then it was like, okay, my view of like thinking I was going to be this, that, and the third as an artist had changed, and I just gained a reality of the industry. But it was still something where I was like, okay, independently, there's a way that you can do this and pursue this and make a living doing this, but you got to go about it the smart way. Still need some money, still need some, some money in your pockets, but there's a smart way to go about it. So I started to try to find the things behind the scenes to do, like audio engineering and production and video work. So rapping first was what I did, but then I started doing those other three things because I was like, if I don't necessarily get where I'm trying to go as an artist off rip, I can still be in the industry somehow or another. And I've been engineering basically 3 years into music. I've been doing video work 3-4 years into music. And I started to do, production more so like 6-7 years into me making music. And around 23, like I said, that's when I started to find the other things behind the scenes to do. But as time went on, I hit my late 20s, closer to 30, 27, 28. I had my daughter around 28, and then I also was like, okay, if this thing doesn't work, if this thing just doesn't work, then it's like, what does my life look like outside of music? And I really didn't know, I didn't really know what type of career I could see myself working in if it wasn't me, like just me as an artist aside. If it wasn't me even engineering or doing something music related, then it's like, what career path would I be taking and would I be, pursuing in order for me to just make a living at, 20, 28 years old? It's like, what does this look like for me from 28 to 48? And, now that I'm 33, from 33 to 53, it's like that 20-year span. Once you hit 30, the next 20 years really matters, because I was always a believer of don't just blow your 20s off having a bunch of fun and not trying to pursue or figure out what you really want to do in life. Not saying don't have fun at all, but I was a believer of I'm cool if I look behind me and all my 20s, all I did was try to figure out how I could make what I wanted to make happen in life. And that's what I did. And now I'm at the point where it's like I really try to figure out my my career path. So like I stated earlier, I've always had a job even through high school, and my main line of work was always food and hospitality. I've always worked in the food industry, stuff like that, restaurants. I was always some sort of manager, whether it be shift leader, low-level manager, or like an assistant manager at whatever restaurant I usually worked at. Or, if I was like a line cook or something like that, that always paid pretty decent. If you work in food, you know that you can get paid well. You just have to work the positions most people don't want to work. You have to work the shifts most people don't want to work, which is usually the night shift or whatever the busiest shift is in your business. And then also you are going to work longer hours and shit like that most people don't want to work. So, whenever I needed a job and I was trying to switch from a different city or whatever, and it was something food related, I come in, I put in an application, like, look, especially before I had my daughter, I was like, my schedule is whatever people don't want to work. Like, what's the hours you having a hard time fill? Give me them hours. I always had a job, always moved up and excelled. But by the time 2023 came, that's when I decided I wanted to get out of the food industry. And when I quit the job I was working at, I was assistant manager there for 3 years, from 2020 to 2023 and 2021. Yeah, so right around, it was like 3 years on the dot. By the time I left that job, I took one more shot at trying to figure out how to get into music full time and just like kind of leave. I had the mentality of thinking I needed to, I used to have the mentality of thinking that I needed to be completely open schedule for me to make my music career work full time. But that particular time, that's not exactly what I was thinking, but I was like, let me just take time away from this. I had a lot of like death in the family and shit like that going on a couple years prior. So it was a downtime for me. But I knew for sure, I was still thinking like, if it's not music, what career path am I gonna go on? And let me kind of take some time to figure that out. So I left. I know I went to Dreamville that year, which was the first time I actually really kind of did anything I wanted to do for real. Went to Dreamville with my homies, and then like 3 or 4 months later, I decided, after me doing a bunch of gig work here and there, I decided to try to see what the logistics life was like. So I got on with Amazon driving trucks, and at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna work with Amazon, and then I was considering going to school for IT. But once I got on Amazon, I worked there for about 3 or 4 months, and I was like, okay, if I'm really gonna commit to me doing the truck driving thing, I don't necessarily want to do my CDLs, but I was like, if I'm gonna do this, instead of getting a decent hourly wage at Amazon, let me go ahead and switch over to UPS, to where, you know, truck drivers just driving the brown trucks, you got guys making 75 plus a year, you know, just driving the trucks with their regular route. That's way more than what Amazon is paying you yearly. So annually. So I was like, that's gonna work out better for me. So I left Amazon, went to UPS trying to do that. And I was made aware that you got to work in the warehouse for a period of time, but like there's no dead set time. It just depends on when the position comes about. So I was like, man, I don't really know. You know, I went into it, did it for a few months, and then they had it set up on the application as if I was going to get my 35 hours a week at $21 an hour, which would have been great for me. But coming to find out, those hours varied, and I wasn't really making the money that I thought I was going to make. So it didn't cut out enough for me to really make it in the warehouse to where I could stick around long enough and pay my bills to get to the trucks. And that was tough for me, you know what I'm saying? Because again, I'm not young. I'm still young, but I'm not a child with no responsibilities. I do have a daughter, I got bills to pay. So me mentioning IT school, it came up right before I went to Amazon, but I was like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go this route. And then after I went from Amazon to UPS and I left, I decided to start out the year doing gig work, and I decided to go ahead and enlist in school for IT. So I did graduate from IT school this year, and I was like, okay, a lot of the stuff with IT I used to get asked while making music and engineering specifically. It was random, but I remember a good 5 to 6 times I would randomly get asked like, oh, you know, you ever worked in IT? And I was like, nah. But people would ask me because, for one, these were a couple of them were people who worked in IT, and for two, the rest of the people were just like noticing that I knew the basic stuff you need to know about computers to make music. And if you're an engineer, you already know you got to make sure you have the laptop that's got enough, you know, space, RAM. You might be changing out, you know, your SD cards and stuff like that. You got to know how to delete your files or whatever. Make sure your computer's clear and all that. You're switching programs. If you know anything about crack programs, you're downloading programs, installing programs. You're usually going back and forth between a Windows and a Mac computer, which are the two dominant computers in the world. So I had a very basic knowledge of the minimal stuff you need to know about computers to get into IT. And at the end of the day, if you want to get into IT, you don't need to know nothing at all. But if you have that kind of basic knowledge, you pretty much gonna have you'll be able to keep up with the very basic certificates and things that you're gonna be learning. The first few courses you're gonna be learning, getting into it. So I decided, like, okay, let me go ahead and enlist in school. I've been asked this enough. This might actually be a career that makes sense with me having I'm computer savvy, so it makes sense a little bit. Let me go ahead and do this. And I enlisted in school. I decided to go ahead through the course. It was a 7-month course. They gave you an opportunity to actually receive your certificates. In IT, the 6 main certificates you need to kind of get the doors open. After that, everything else is on you. And I did that. And about 5 months in, I was like, okay, the way it was set up, if I would have been working still probably like in the food industry or something where I worked nights and did school during the day, it would have worked out for me. But I was really, really, really just trying to avoid going back into the food industry because it's a trap, man. Once you get stuck in a job, people who work in the food industry know what I'm saying. Once you get a job, they're gonna pay you good, your schedule might work out and all that, but it's just you feel stuck if you're really not trying to work in that field anymore. So I decided not to do that and just do, you know, balance it out with my gig work and hustling with music and stuff like that in between. And about 5 months in, I was like, man, I really just considered the military. I considered joining the military. And the backstory on that real quick is my dad did 10 years in Desert Storm. So it was always something I was like privy to and aware of. I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, so I was born on a military base and whatnot. So the military lifestyle wasn't something brand new to me. And it was always one of those things in my back pocket, like if my life don't go the way I think it's going to go or the way that I am planning on it going, I'm going to the Army. Like if I don't know what else to do, I'm going to the Army. And from my number, which rule of thumb, don't ever put a cap on yourself, right? But my age was, by the time I was 18, I was like, if I don't make it where I'm trying to go by 25, I'm going to the Army. By the time I hit 25, I didn't go to the Army, but I still was like, okay, it still was something in the back of my mind. And by the time I hit like 29, 30, it was just every other year, at least once a year, I was like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like this Army thing might not be that bad. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the worst case scenario is going to war, going to handle conflict. But every single person I knew, every young vet that I knew that went in, whether they did one term or they're still in right now trying to get that full 20, they're up. You know what I'm saying? That, for lack of better words, they're up. I don't know not one person that went in that had a good mentality and a good mindset that is down after joining the Army. And for me, I was like, it started to look more and more tempting the last like 2 years for real. So, like I said, got to about 2 months left in school, and I decided I'm gonna go ahead and enlist, man. And I considered it for a while, talked to a friend. They put me on with a recruiter, and I decided to go ahead and make the jump, make the leap, and go ahead and enlist. So, at the age of 33, I'm thinking like, damn, man, I'm about to be like an old head. Like I'm about to be real unk status in the Army. But I actually realized there's a lot more people, late 20s, 30, and up, that's actually going to the military than I realized. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're usually used to people between, I'd say, 18 and 21 or under 25 enlisting, and it's seeming like it's the move then. But anything after that, it's kind of like, whoa, what the hell? We old, like you ain't gonna be in shape, and da 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 da. That's what most people think, and that's most of the reactions I got from people when I mentioned it. But for me, it was like, these are the reasons. Now I'm gonna get into the reasons why it actually seems like it's the best thing for me. So, what I didn't understand about the Army is, outside of obviously being deployed or going to war, it's just a job. At the end of the day, it's just a job. It's just a job that requires you to understand, how to handle firearms and weapons, and understand a little bit of hand-to-hand combat, and just understand that obviously you, at any day, you could lay a lot. You may have to finally pull that throttle on laying your life on the line and going to war. But other than that, you're just going to be working out daily. And you're going to be doing whatever your job is in the actual military or whatever branch you're in. And for me, the specific part I didn't realize when I was younger was the military trains you, they get you certified for whatever job you're in. So let's say if it's the food industry, right? If you've never worked in food before, but you wanted to be a chef, they're not going to teach you necessarily how to be a full-blown chef, but going in, you are going to be Serve Safe certified. You are going to understand the basics of nutrition and portion control and things like that. Like, you're going to understand how to feed thousands of people at a time. So if you haven't worked in the food industry and that's something brand new to you, you're going to go into the Army learning that experience. Obviously, you're feeding thousands of soldiers, right? Similar to IT, if I would have honestly made the decision before I went to school, and I would have realized, even though the job you want isn't always guaranteed, if I go in and I land a IT MOS, they're going to certify me with 6 or 7, the basic certificates you need to complete your contract and transition out with that same type of job. And basically, your MOS is your military operating specialty. And to transition out into the civilian world, if you have a food job, an IT job, a construction job, a logistics job, all those jobs transition out. When I was younger, I thought that it was just all guns and combat and war. And, I knew people drove trucks and I knew there was cooks, but I didn't know that. And the one that honestly caught me off guard was the fact that you can go in and be a musician. Now, I've seen the musicians, the people who play the drums and the trumpets, and even sometimes the national anthem on certain like games and stuff. You know, maybe not the Super Bowl, but like the nights that you see NFL or NBA game and it's like a mid-season game. It's not a big game, but they got a soldier singing. I've seen that, but I never thought in my head like, damn, that's a job. That's an MOS in the military. I never thought about that. So thinking about all that, really gaining that understanding, I was like, shit, let me go ahead and I'm in enlist. And my main thing is to go in. I'm gonna do my one contract, whatever it's gonna be, 3 or 4 years, and I want to just, you know, get an IT job and utilize it to transition out. Now, one thing my recruiter mentioned to me was you want to have your, you know, 3, maybe 4 choices of jobs just in case the main job you want aren't up there. So for me, unfortunately, music is off the table because I don't actually know how to play an instrument. But once I get in, I'm still going to take my singing and piano lessons and stuff like that because I just want to do that, period, which leads, you know, it rolls back to me I'm not tapping out on the music thing. But the main 3 for me are IT. If I don't end up with an IT job, I want to get a construction job. And if I don't get a construction job, I'm going to take a logistics job. Like one of those 3 fields I'm going to take because all of those things are essentially our skills and trades right now that are very popular and very high demand in the everyday world, in the civilian world, that are paying the best, and actually the pay and the hours paying out as far as your work-life schedule, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? The main reasons that I really considered it all was like, me personally, a lot of people think just because you're 30, you already set in your ways and you are who you are, and that's it for you. And mentally, if that's your mindset, then that is true. But for me, I'm not scared to change. I'm not scared to start over. So what I personally wanted to do was do this now before it did get too late. You know, as far as just like me getting set in my ways and all that stuff. I'm going in for the discipline and the, you know, the structure for 1, the financial stability for 2, the obviously the physical goes into the discipline, but the overall benefits that come with it, because as we know, like being in, whether you do 4 years or you do 24 years, once you're a vet, and you're allowed to, you're basically, you have rights to certain benefits. You know what I'm saying? We all, you know, if you don't know nothing about the military, but you, like, let's say you own a home, you've heard about a VA benefit, the VA hospital, VA loans, you've heard about those types of things, you know, military discounts at restaurants, you hear about those simple, small little things, and those things really matter. So, you know, the discipline, the benefits, I forgot what else I said, but also on top of that, just the fact that it's a respectable job. So, like I said, I don't intend on going in 20. You never know. I might go in there. I might fall in love. I might want to do the whole thing. But I plan on doing my one contract and coming out. But it's actually something that, it's been a while since I've done something and people just respect it off rip. You know what I'm saying? They just got love for it off rip. They're gonna show you a certain type of respect off rip that I didn't have when, you know, that I haven't felt that in a long time. I honestly feel like I ain't felt that since like football days for real back in high school. And that's, you know, it's kind of crazy because, as you know, being a musician, it gets looked at a certain way. So it's not the same type of morale or respect that you get put on the job as it is being in the military. And so like I said, the discipline, the financial stability, the benefits, and just the fact that it's a respectable job and how it looks on your resume. Overall, if you are someone that is, you know, you're looking for a job and you're job hunting in this economy right now, you know, your resume is everything. And honestly, you got to update it and change it, and, you know, all that now at per job you're applying for, really. But one thing that is going to stand true is if you're a veteran, more people are already going to look at that and be like, okay, this person's disciplined. He understands, you know, this, that, and the third about just getting the job done. And those are things that that's going to stand true for me regardless, but definitely going to be even more true me coming out of the military. And like I said, those are the main reasons why I'm deciding to go in. And at this age, it's not something that I'm scared of. Physically, I'm cool. Like a lot of people my age, they not in the best shape. I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? Outside of just the natural aches and pains that you're gonna have, I'm straight. So that's the part I'm actually looking forward to. Um, and then the actual work experience that I'm gonna gain in there is also something that I'm looking forward to. And on top of that, when I come out, like I said, I'm gonna do my 4 years, my one contract. If I do anything longer than that, after I get my piano lessons and singing lessons and stuff like that, the only way I'm re-enlisting is if I go back in as a musician. I'm gonna just say that right now. But if I do my one contract and I come out, the upside is I won't retire as a soldier, but I can still work a government job, post office, if I was a police officer, something like that, a state or a federal job, and it still counts towards your retirement. So you still get that on top of whatever else you do outside of that job. So for me, it's nothing but upside going into the military, in all honesty. And of course, this is a presidential election, and the time I'm going in could seem crazy. But when I graduated high school, the main reason I didn't want to go at that time was because we were at war at the time. You know what I'm saying? Under the Obama administration and all that, we were actively at war. So I was like, nah, I don't know about it. But even now, one thing I can say, my pops told me was like, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? You can die all kind of ways. You know what I'm saying? You could get erased from this earth all kind of ways. And it could be war in the military. It could be, you know, situations out here and every day. And as a police officer, it could be, living in the wrong neighborhood. It could be completely accidental. It just all depends on some of it is your actions here in the flesh, and the rest of it is honestly up to God. So for me, that's not a part that really makes me nervous or anything like that. But I do want to take advantage of the opportunity to really put myself forward. And being 30 plus, I think we all start to really care more about benefits. Like I've been made aware of what benefits are of certain jobs and 401ks and health benefits and stuff like that just for regular job stuff since I was 23, 24. But now I care more because I'm getting a little bit older and I'm just reaching for actual structure in my life as far as just the way I'm living and stuff like that. And me having a daughter, that's something. Oh, I don't want my phone to fall. I'm about to get to the end of this. But me having a daughter, sheesh, me having a daughter, that's definitely one of the main reasons that I want to have all this stuff in place. Make sure she's good. So, like I said, man, music ain't over for me. That's something I'm still gonna do, and not only because it's gonna be a passion of mine, but it's also still something I have an option to utilize and still be an income stream for me overall, especially in the sync space and stuff like that. But right now, for me, that's the main reason I'm going into the Army, man. Main reason I'm going into the military is just because I know a smooth 7, 8 people come to mind. 3 or 4 of them being women, but the rest being men that went in, did their contract, came out, and not saying they was down bad before, but like they just been up ever since. And, these are people that I know, so it's not just a thing of me looking at social media or whatever, but just even off a quick scroller, just how they live in social media wise, you can see that they're doing the things that they want to do in life and accomplishing. And for me, it's something that my pops always explained to me is like, if you ever want to get the quickest way to stability is honestly through the military. Like, and though you move around and there's a lot of schedule changing and stuff like that, even though it's set for short periods of time, like 3-4 years at a time, it's still the quickest way to really win in this country, man. When you graduate high school, if you're not going to college for something that matters, if you're not going to learn a trade, and if you are not going into a family business or coming from a family that already has some sort of business established for you to go into after high school or after college, the only other way to get yourself really straight is the military. So, 4 years of me having an income, which it ain't like I'm gonna be balling out, but understanding that after me having 10 years of paying rent, knowing I don't have to pay rent, I don't have to worry about my food, You know, my health benefits is gonna be there, all that stuff, and I'm gonna have enough bread to make sure my daughter's straight and still get the time for the most part, you know, as long as it's approved and I'm not going crazy. I still get the time to see my daughter and stuff like that. I'm cool. It's no better come up for me than joining the military at this particular time. And then on the backside of all that, it's the best way for me to honestly utilize the time to invest into my music. So, you know, it's probably not gonna be many music updates for about 6 months to a year. But once I get to my duty station and I know where I'm at and I'm settled and I can get my equipment back and stuff like that, I'm gonna be pumping out more music again. So these are the main reasons why, like I said, I personally joined the military. Just the discipline, the financial stability, the benefits, and just the respectability factor of the job. And then the fifth thing will be the morale overall. Just knowing I'm going in a place to where there's gonna be some people with you know, the wrong mindset. I'm going a little older, so there's gonna be some younger folks. But for the most part, anybody who signed that contract, you're going in there for 1 to 2 reasons. There's gonna be a lot of people gung ho on just serving overall, and I'm happy and proud that I wanted to do that. As a little boy, it was something that always was in the back of my head since my dad served. But also, everybody else on the flip side is there because they know what benefits come with it, actually being that and being somebody who goes through that, which honestly a lot of people can't make it through. So I haven't left for basic yet. I leave on October 1st. Ain't no backing out. I already done signed. I'm gonna be there. But yeah, man, this is me, you know, kind of transitioning from a rapper to a recruit, from a songwriter to a soldier. And anybody else who is specifically, if you are going to be going through the 09 Mike program, aka the Future Soldiers Preparatory Course program, and you're going to be on Fort Jackson October 1st, y'all holler at me, get down in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Get with me. We can try to make sure we kind of connect, because that's where I'm gonna be at, and that's when my journey starts. So until then, I go by the name of Hemingway. I'm blessed to be here. I'm happy to be here, man. I'm still at it. Y'all get at me.